Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. I'm climbing up there in the numbers. This will be series 260. 260 authors. Many of the authors have more than one book. So probably over 300 different books I've gone over since 2013, closing in on 700 videos, many of them 2 hours long. So probably over 1,000 hours. I'm in my 6th year of making videos and my 15th year of researching WTH. What the heck is going on? It's been an interesting experience. A lot of revelations for me, learning what's going on. So the book I've been reading the past couple days, actually for about 2 weeks, I read like a dozen different books at one time, is The War on Terror, The Plot to Rule the Middle East, Christopher Bolin. So we all know since 9/11, many countries in the Middle East and many other places in the world have been either destroyed or had revolutions take place, leaders assassinated, other leaders imprisoned, and apparently puppet leaders put in place. So there does seem to be an ongoing program during this entrance into the age of Aquarius, leaving the age of Pisces, the last age. The beginning of it, we had the Savior Jesus Christ arrive on earth and be crucified for his efforts to teach humanity that we are to love one another. And now there's a lot of propaganda out there that a lot of people are believing that Christianity was created to control the people, that Jesus was a myth, something they created a couple hundred years ago. He really didn't exist. But my research shows that not to be the case. Even the Theosophist Society and all the secret societies mention Jesus Christ as being real, as well as Edgar Casey in my many videos on his books, series 112 in the Freemasonry and Satanism series book reviews. So I haven't found anything that really shows that Jesus Christ didn't exist or that he didn't teach we are to love one another. But I do find a lot of information out there that seems to indicate that they want to change history. So I've been reading this book, The War on Terror, The Plot to Rule the Middle East. Here's apparently Christopher Bolin here. Focus. So what's it say on the back of the book? The government and the media have misled us about 9/11 in order to compel public opinion to support the war on terror. Why have we gone along with it? That's a good question. When it's so obvious that something's not right, why have we gone along with it, and why do we continue to go along with it? Do we accept endless war as normal? Are we numb to the suffering caused by our military inventions? No. We have simply been propagandized into submission. We have been deceived into thinking that the war on terror is a good thing, a valiant struggle against terrorists who intend to attack us, as we were on 911. Behind the War on Terror is a strategic plan crafted decades in advance to redraw the map of the Middle East. 911 was a false flag operation blamed on Muslims in order to start the military operations for that strategic plan. Recognizing the origin of the plan is crucial to understanding the deception that has changed our world. Christopher Bullen. So, you got to give people credit, like this author, for, making those statements and writing a book like this. We've seen what just happened to the Assange, the creator of WikiLeaks, being arrested viciously, and so many other whistleblowers being shut up, and even on my videos, even recently, more and more of the topics that I talk about that relate to what I'm going to talk about in this book. The videos have either been deleted off of the YouTube channel or restricted and censored. And they have different kinds of programs. One, of course, is to delete the video. The other one is to restrict them so that you, the viewer, have to kind of agree to an acknowledgement that the material could be kind of hate speech. And the other one I've been getting recently is that YouTube has informed me that my videos are banned in certain countries in Europe. So there's several different things they can do. And then, of course, shadow banning, which means because of the way computers work, when people do searches, when you look at your YouTube and you get the suggested videos to watch, well, maybe mine are not going to be there intentionally, you think? And others. So I appreciate all the other people out there that are writing books and have written books even 100, 200 years ago. That's why I decided to do the book reviews, because I noticed on the topics that I was researching, I found out that books were already written, and in a lot of cases by very well-known intellectual persons, and in many cases they were murdered or imprisoned for their efforts to share the truth with humanity, whether it's in Europe or the Middle East or America. President John Kennedy being a good example, who prior to his assassination said that secret societies are repugnant to the American way of life, and I intend to expose them. And look what happened. So it is an interesting world, and we're in an interesting period of time right now. Apparently some kind of fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And I've certainly made a lot of videos that anybody, if they want to take the time, can go watch my videos. And I wouldn't stop there. I'd listen to what I say, take some notes, and go look up those authors and other related people talking about those same topics, and use your own judgment, your own common sense, your own discernment. It's critical, in my opinion, because there seems to be this battle between the family value-oriented and other orthodox, God-fearing, believing religions, and the people who want to get people to believe there is no God, there are no commandments, do as thou wilt. Like some kind of a cosmic battle between Jesus and God and Lucifer and Satan and all the fallen angels and demons. A gigantic battle between the two forces. And all most of us citizens want to do is just get along and live our lives, and we go, why can't all of this just go away? Can't we just get back to normal? But when you think about it, what is normal? The 1900s brought us World War I and World War II, and German Christian soldiers in trenches firing their guns at British and American and French and Allied Christian troops in their trenches firing back. And neither the American Christians or British Christians or French Christians or Italians Christians or the German Christians and all those people, they didn't really want to kill each other. But they were deceived. The powers that be, controlled by the ultimate same puppet master. Isn't that ironic? The same people who financed Germany to rebuild it after World War I, before World War II, were financing Russia to rebuild it. So the money to Russia was coming out of the United States and the equipment, and the money for Germany was coming out of Britain and all the equipment. Somebody wanted World War II to happen, and somebody seems to want World War III to happen. The million-dollar question is, who, what, and why? So maybe we'll get a couple answers from this book and my other videos I've made. I kind of think I know, but I've made a promise to myself to continue with the books I've got and keep on doing it and keep on doing it and keep on doing it, and maybe people will catch on. So one thing they had that people should be aware of is they have a plan for something called a Greater Israel, a return to the ancient kingdom of Judea, which extended up to the Iraqi Euphrates, to the Egyptian Nile River, a huge area, much larger than the area they have now, which is the occupied Palestine they now call Israel. And even Google seems to have taken Palestine off the map as a name, so we can say that a lot of the huge internet providers and controllers, like I said, the shadow banning and algorithms, computers, it's all controllable, and to many different degrees. One, we all know they know everything about us, where we spend with our credit cards and debit cards and cash, money we put in the bank and take out of the bank. If it exceeds a certain amount of money, they have to alert the government. The transactions, the books we buy, the movies we watch, the places we go, the churches we go to, the people we talk to, and the things we say. They can probably listen to anybody through their cell phone or smart TV or smart meter. And then they have facial recognition systems. We've all seen those crazy movies where they can track anybody going anywhere. Apparently, it's all real. And in China, it's even, society is controlled. People are given debits or credits as contingent upon their behavior. So if you're doing what the government wants, you have a higher social rating, and you can get on a train or a plane or rent an apartment or get a job or move. But if you're not doing what the government wants, you're not going to get on a train or a plane or rent an apartment or get a job, because they can control everything. And apparently it's working its way that way here into the USA, and apparently it is in control in a lot of countries in Europe, the battleground for World War II. So those people felt the control mechanisms before we did and are doing in the United States. But I do believe the mechanisms in the United States are being put in place, and probably are in place, like with the Jade Helm 2015, where they were moving equipment and troops and using algorithms, software programs, apps, to actually make the decisions based on metadata, what they know about the people in the houses, in the streets, in the neighborhoods, when they were doing those military exercises preparing for martial law. They're using computers to make decisions, not people. And of course now they have directed energy weapons, microwave weapons, and so many other tools at their disposal, controlling your bank account, your money, your phone, your TV, everything. And they can probably demonize anybody and send a SWAT team anywhere, or even miniature robotic mosquitoes, or microwave weapons, or drones. And it promises to be right out of a Twilight Zone movie, what it seems they have planned for planet Earth. And of course, so a lot of this World War I, World War II was brought about to bring down Turkey. So simple, which was the main headquarters for the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman Empire that controlled the Middle East. And it was the Turks, and the religious leader was called a sultan. And the sultan, the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, which were focused mostly on Arabs and Islamic religious types, and not all Arabs are Islamic. Some Arabs are Christians. A lot of them could be atheists, Buddhist, Hindu, Zoroastrianism, etc. So a lot of people think myopic, they just see this thin view. They don't realize that those Arabs encompass all religions, and some of them probably no religions, and some of them are probably into Satanism and witchcraft. Just like the rest of the world. We have all kinds. So anyways, part of the story is they wanted to bring about this biblical prophecy of a greater Israel, the return to the ancient property lines of Judea. And a long time ago, King Cyrus helped the Jews rebuild King Solomon's temple the second time. And recently I've seen these coins honoring the third temple with President Donald Trump's face on them and King Cyrus, and mentioning the Balfour Agreement, an agreement made during World War I, when Britain was losing the war and Germany was winning, that the Jewish people approached the British and said, hey, we can bring the United States into the war. We can get you all the money you want. We can get you the support of Jewish people all over the world. But in return, for us helping you turn the tide of the war where you don't have to lose and surrender, we want the Palestinians' land, the Balfour Agreement. And that's on that coin with Donald Trump's head. And a picture of the temple, and a picture of King Cyrus. So it doesn't take a Sherlock Holmes type of person, or a rocket scientist, or a genius to be able to figure this out. There is a plan. Anyways, one of the elite Jewish people wrote about a plan, and apparently his name was Yinon, in this book here. The Yinon Plan, chapter 4. The idea that all the Arab states should be broken down by Israel into small units occurs again and again in Israeli strategic thinking. For example, Ziv Shift, the military correspondent of Haaretz, that's a popular Jewish newspaper magazine, and probably the most knowledgeable in Israel on this topic, writes about the best that can happen for Israeli interest in Iraq is the dissolution of Iraq into a Shiite state, a Sunni state, and the separation of the Kurdish part. Actually, this aspect of the plan is very old. So Israel Sharak, however you say that name there, the Zionist plan for the Middle East, June 13th, 1982. So this is 2019. So almost 40 years between then and now, we've all seen what's been taking place. And again, I've been making so many videos, looking at so many books, and I continue to do so. See if I can get this correct. The War on Terror, the Plot to Rule the Middle East, Christopher Bowen. So I think I can read a book like this and say to myself, yay or nay? Is this guy telling the truth? Is this information that everybody should know? And I'm saying, it seems to me, that this author is right on. So you can go find this book. I want to give credit where credit is due. My motivation is quite simple. I'm an older man now, 64 years old. I'm not going to be on this planet forever. But I grew up with a lot of opportunity and a lot of freedom. When I was young, growing up in Maine, I could pull my car over on the side of the road, even as a teenager, and go off into the woods and hunt for a turkey or a deer, etc. And I could go to college. I worked during the day or night and went to community college and colleges, both working and going to school. I was in the Army. I used my GI Bill to help me with some of the education. I worked for a major aerospace company for 10 years. I have a degree in electronic technology. I've had many power boats and a 32-foot sailboat. I've even sailed my own sailboat to the Bahamas. I've had a beach by the house, a house by the beach, and a house on the St. Johns River north of Orlando, and 55 acres of land in Maine, and boats and motorcycles. In other words, I had the opportunity to do all these things and more. I've had a pretty good life. And my concern is that's all about to change. The younger people in the future are not going to have this. All those people in the Middle East that have been killed since 9/11, and all those people in Europe and even Americans that were killed during World War I and World War II, they are not having that opportunity. They're dead. And the young people today are growing up in a world where it's going to be a controlled, monitored world where fences are everywhere and nobody can have those opportunities. That's my motivation, to get people to wake up and say they're taking our world away. And they're bringing us a transgender, do as thou wilt type of a Luciferic satanic philosophy, an anti-Christian philosophy, probably anti-Islamic and other religions. Just saying, why does Rick Miracle do these things, make these videos, and spend all this time? And I just feel bad that the people in the future aren't going to have the world I had and grew up in. And there have been a lot of things that maybe I would have changed or I would have done differently, the mistakes I've made. But that's part of being born and living and growing older. We all get to think about our lives and judge for ourselves what we did or what we should do. We shouldn't be blind, and we shouldn't be ignorant or stupid, and we should start paying attention and thinking and seeing and hearing and looking about our environment, not buying into the Republicans are evil or the Democrats are evil, etc., etc., the Hegelian dialectic, where they want to divide and conquer us, which they're doing quite well. So I mentioned here the Zionist plan for the Middle East and something called the Yinon plan. So I want to talk about it, read from this book. So let's see where I left off here. Iraq, rich in oil on the one hand and internally torn on the other, is guaranteed as a candidate for Israel's target. Its dissolution is even more important for us than that of Syria. Iraq is stronger than Syria. In the short run, it is Iraq power which constitutes the greatest threat to Israel. And the date on this book, that's always important when we know what happened now, 2019. So this was written, here it says copyright 2017. So not that long ago. So Iraq had to be taken down because it was a powerful country, next to Israel. Plus, it's also part of the land included in the ancient kingdom of Judea, from the Iraqi Euphrates down to the Egyptian Nile. And I'm going to show you some pictures of the greater Israel here in a moment. And also, Iran sits between Afghanistan and Iraq. So Iran apparently was actually probably the strongest countries but they had to destroy all the surrounding smaller countries before they go after the big fish. And they need a lot of public support from peoples all over the world. So they want us to believe that the Arabs just have a hatred for our freedoms. As ridiculous as that sounds, a lot of people are buying that teaching, that propaganda. President George Bush Jr. mentioned it many times, as well as many other people. They hate our freedom. How ridiculous is that? And we've seen that many of those people in the Middle East either murdered or deported, immigrated into European countries and the United States. So there is a program to depopulate the Middle East, and there is a program for a greater Israel called the Yin Yan Plan, and it's part of a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. All right, Iraq is stronger than Syria. In the short run, it is Iraqi power which constitutes the greatest threat to Israel. An Iraqi-Iranian war will tear Iraq apart and cause its downfall at home even before it is able to recognize a struggle on a wide front against us. Every kind of inter-Arab confrontation will assist us in the short run and will shorten the way to the more important aim of breaking up Iraqi into denominations, as in Syria and in Lebanon. In Iraq, a division into provinces along ethnic religious lines, as in Syria, during Ottoman times is possible. So I talked about the Ottoman Empire, which controlled the Middle East for hundreds and hundreds of years, had to be destroyed, and they used World War I and World War II to do it. And that would be in Turkey, and the leader was the Sultan. And they would not allow the Jewish people to create a country in the Middle East because they knew prophecy. They know what's up. So 3 or more states will exist around the 3 major cities, Basra, Baghdad, Mosul, and the Shiite areas into the south will separate from the Sunni and Kurdish north. The Odin Yinyan, a strategy for Israel in the 1980s, a journal for Judaism and Zionism, World Zionist Organization, Jerusalem, February 1982. Now, I hate to do this, but I'm going to read it again, but make a point. This was published. What I'm going to read again. Israel Shahak, the Zionist plan for the Middle East in June 13, 1982. So what I'm about to read was a published plan by the Zionists in 1982. I read it once, I'll read it again. This is a plan written in 1982, published. Iraq, rich in oil on the one hand and internally torn on the other, is guaranteed as a candidate for Israel's target. 1982, they wrote this plan. Its dissolution is even more important for us than that of Syria. Iraq is stronger than Syria. In the short run, it is Iraq power which constitutes the greatest threat to Israel. An Iraqi-Iranian war will tear Iraq apart and cause its downfall at home even before it is able to recognize a struggle on a wide front against us. Remember, this is 1982. Before George Bush Sr. had his war against Iraq, and also caused a war between Iran and Iraq. All this was planned. It's mentioned right here. Before 9/11, before the George Bush Sr. attacking Iraq, before the war between Iran and Iraq, all instigated from the outside. It's in this book. Every kind of inter-Arab confrontation will assist us. Let me read it again. Every kind of inter-Arab confrontation will assist us in the short run and will shorten the way to the more important aim of breaking up Iraq into denominations, as in Syria and Lebanon. in Iraq a division into provinces along the ethnic religious lines as in Syria during Ottoman times as possible. So over there in the Middle East, they want to break up these countries into ethnic lines. So they want all these people to be either Shiite or Kurds or Sunnis into separate ethnic areas. Now, isn't that odd? Like here in the United States, they want many ethnic peoples to all merge into one. Globalism. They want to dilute all of our different ethnic groups, cultural groups, religious groups. So here they want to dilute us in the United States, probably all over Europe. But over there, they needed to pen them all up into separate little provinces. And it was so they could dispute and fight amongst themselves over the borders and kill each other. FYI. So 3 or more states will exist around the 3 major cities, Basra, Baghdad, and Mosul, and the Shiite areas in the south will separate from the Sunni to the Kurdish north. Odin Yinyan, a strategy for Israel in the 1980s, a journal for Judaism and Zionism, World Zionism Organization, Jerusalem, February 1982. This stuff I just read was published. Next page. But first, let me make a little Yahoo image video search on Greater Israel and show you how far back this goes. Hello, Rick Miracle here again with a Yahoo image search. And the keywords I searched on Yahoo image site is Greater Israel. And I did not filter this. This is the direct image results. And it says here, the Holy Land of Israel. So they got a lot of people believing that Christianity is outdated and was a religion created to control people, and that Jesus didn't really exist, or God doesn't exist, or people are believing they really don't have spirits or souls. Then why would they want to return to the ancient property lines, the ancient kingdom of Judea, now called Israel? Anyways, you can go and see these pictures on the Yahoo image search for Greater Israel, and you can see that it cuts Iraq right in half, and you can see Syria, a good portion of it is inside the line, and Jordan, and here's Palestine, now called Israel, and down into the Egyptian Nile, and half of Saudi Arabia. So you can see they got, in this map, it's got part of Turkey, Syria, all of Syria, a lot of Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, part of Egypt, Greater Israel. And you can click the links, and it says here on the top right, the link to this particular picture from the website AboveTopSecret.com, 2016 to 2023, the Great War is coming. The phoenix will rise. So back here it says King David's empire, 1000 BC before Christ to 930 BC. So 3,000 years ago, this was their kingdom. David's kingdom. You see all this in red? 3,000 years ago. Fulfillment of prophecy. Ottoman Empire in 1916, prior and during World War I, the Ottoman Empire, you see this map on the left, controlled all of that land in the Middle East. That's why we had World War I and World War II, to destroy the Ottoman Empire in Turkey. Now I have to ask a fair question. You're watching this video. Do you not think that these people in Turkey, in Greece, in Syria, in Iraq, in Iran, and all these countries in the Middle East. Do you not think they know their history? Of course they know. So this is the map on the right is the new empire in 2016. Greater Israel, the Turkish Republic, probably controlled by a puppet president. Here's Russia. Iran here. You see why Iran is a threat? Was called Persia on the map on the left. So whether you call it the Ottoman Empire, it says on this picture, or Greater Israel, it amounts to the same thing. Destruction of Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, and their replacement by a Zionist-controlled state stretching from the shores of the Mediterranean to the banks of the Euphrates in Iraq. Biblical prophecy. Who promised these people this? You think it was really Jesus and Jesus's father, God, the Creator? Or do you think it might be a more nefarious being? And even in the Bible in Revelations it says, Jews who call themselves Jews but are of the synagogue of Satan. Revelation in the Bible 2.9 and 3.9. From the book of Egypt, the Nile to the Euphrates and Iraq, including Lebanon, parts of Jordan and Saudi Arabia, their kingdom dream from which they will control the nations of the world. You and I. If you don't believe me, then you wake up from your slumber, open your eyes and mine, and read below. And this link is the naked truth in a confused world.blogspot. So like I said, these pictures on Yahoo image site, you can click the links and get the scoop. mpbondblog.wordpress.com, Zionism and Judaism. And here's Theodore Herschel, founder and father of Zionism in the 100 years ago. He says the area of the Jewish state stretches from the brook of the Egypt to the Euphrates. The father of Zionism, Theodore Herschel. I made book reviews on books by him and other people who wrote about him. So I kind of have a good idea of what it all says. And if you watched my videos, so do you. And of course, it doesn't hurt that they have the petrodollar, oil, in all of these territories, which gives them control of a resource that is valuable and brings them in a lot of money. You can see on the picture on the right all the oil fields in Iran. I guess you can see why they need to conquer and destroy Iran. And here's some in Iraq, down here in Saudi Arabia. Syria has oil, Turkey has oil. Areas under ISIS control, so the powers that be created some guerrilla warfare people called ISIS, and they demonized them, telling us they're responsible for all the terrorism, when these organizations were created by the West, NATO, the Illuminati, the controllers of America and Britain and Germany and Italy and France, etc., and Israel, created ISIS just for this dirty deed of doing all of the terrorism. But we the people don't seem to want to wake up and see the truth. The Israeli state expands outwards. After Israel, bigger than you think. Jewish world order, control of the entire world from Jerusalem. That's a video on YouTube called the Greater Israel Project. So I ask again, and I think it's a fair question, is there any doubt in anybody's mind who's watching this video? What's up? Why we had World War I? Why we had World War II? Why we had 9/11? Why they're installing monitoring, facial recognition, technological systems all over the U.S. and the world, all in alignment with biblical prophecy to create a global world order. And it's an anti-Christian effort. So here's somebody, the absurd accusation of Greater Israel. So I'm reading a book with Mr. Yin Yan's plan and all these pictures, and somebody doesn't want you to believe it. Jew haters love to post this map. Well, I'm here to tell you now that a lot of Jewish people are opposed to Zionism also. And you can go on Yahoo image site and see it. Matter of fact, before I end this video, why don't I just do it right now? All right, you're watching me do this search. I didn't filter out anything. I just put in Zionism. So they're accusing anybody who's opposed to this of being a Jewish hater. So here's the founder of Zionism, Theodor Herzl. Six-pointed star, the same kind of star for the demon god Moloch or the fallen angel Raphael. FYI. Here are some Jewish people. Zionism is state-organized terror. Zionism is the cause of Mideast bloodshed. Well, you think about the World War I and World War II and 9/11 and killing all those people. Yeah, it is a problem for the world. Zionism is the main cause of anti-Semitism throughout the world. Zionism is the name for the people who want to rebuild the ancient kingdom of Judea, now called Israel, and expand the property lines to include all those countries you saw in the maps. And a lot of Jews are fighting that. This particular Jewish man is the father of it. Zionism, it is a political party within the Jewish community. Half of the Jews are for it, half are against. If it's 50-50, it might be 60-40, whatever. It says on this map, use of American financial, military, media strength to push forward Israel's agenda. That's all happening now. Use of clandestine operations such as Anti-Defamation League, Southern Poverty Law Center, Canadian Human Rights Commission, and others to squelch opposition for the unwavering support of Israel and its actions. And in the news lately, this is April 2019, and videos on YouTube, the Sanhedrin, the political religious authority in Israel, is calling on the U.S. government to pass legislation making it illegal to say negative things about Zionism and Israel and boycotting, calling it hate speech. And by the way, since World War II, in many of the European countries, it has been illegal and you would go to prison for speaking the truth. All right, more on this picture. Use of foreign agents, employees of America, Israel Public Affairs Committee to threaten the government to push forward the Israel agenda. Now on the right here in the middle it says dominance of world's financial institutions to ensure wealth and money and flow to organized Jewry in Israel. On the bottom of this star, use of media to strong-arm politicians and to place Israel in a positive light to ensure support of the public. On the right, it says use of intelligence agencies. I've made videos about the intelligence agencies' involvement. Even Mossad, the intelligence agency for Israel, involvement in 9/11. It says here Mossad to eliminate possible threats that can cause the end of the support for Israel, and to eliminate politicians who would oppose the agenda. Eliminate politicians who would oppose the agenda. Maybe it explains why President John Kennedy was assassinated when he said in his famous speech, "Secret societies are repugnant to the American way of life, and I intend to expose them." Who do you suppose he was talking about? Do you suppose he knew about this? That World War I and World War II were brought about just to bring us to where we are today. On the bottom it says, having various meetups around the year, Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, Canadian Jewish Congress, European Jewish Congress, etc. And you can go look at this picture and this at maraton.com. Marathon. So plenty of evidence to show that there are Jewish people opposed to this. So how can anybody who's also opposed to this global world order Zionism be called an anti-Semite, a Jewish hater, when we have Jewish people agreeing with us that this is evil? Torah Jewry mourns all human suffering. Stop Zionist aggression. Here's the Israeli flag with the star of Moloch or Rephaim, the fallen angel, on it. Here's a nice little propaganda piece. Israel's quick building of field hospitals after natural disasters helps thousands of people and saves countless lives. They want you to think this is Zionism. Stand with us. So you do have to be discerning in your observations, because a lot of people will parrot what that thing just said. And this has gone back since World War I and World War II. Here's an old picture showing you probably prisoners, ex-prisoners from Russia or Germany on their way to Palestine to create the State of Israel. And I mentioned the Rothschilds, and they even have Rothschilds Boulevard in Israel. And Rothschildism, our aim is disarm the Americans and let them fall asleep. Council of Foreign Relations, Mikhail Gorbachev. That's why they gave us Barack Obama, to further divide we the people. Democrats, Republicans, black, whites, gays, straights, rich and poor, Americans, Mexicans, Americans and Chinese, Americans, Russians, all these divide and conquer techniques. Communism, socialism, Nazis, Satanism, Marxist, fascism. A lot of people are pretty smart. Zionism is not healthy for children and other living things. Zionism. I certainly wouldn't want to be a Palestinian citizen or Iraqi citizen or Syrian citizen or Afghan citizen or half the countries in northern Africa. And maybe this is what we're going to be seeing all over the world for those people who are in opposition to the global world order. I think you've gotten it. You can go on Yahoo image site and just plug in Zionism. Simple as that. I didn't filter this or arrange these in any order. And you can go look up Greater Israel for yourself. I am Jewish, and I want Israel to stop killing Palestinians. The Zionists, the globalists, want this guy to shut up. They want anybody who speaks the truth about these issues to shut up. Well, Barack Obama, during his presidency, there were a couple years there where he was giving more financial aid and military aid to Israel than any president ever. All the presidents are part of this. Even the current president, Donald Trump, announcing that United States recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, fulfilling their prophecy. Christian Zionism, how can that be? It was the Shehendron, the Zionists, the Illuminati, who had Jesus Christ crucified. How could they be Christian? It's an oxymoron. Oh boy. Crazy pictures. Denouncing Israel's war crime is anti-Semitism. famous Zionist. See these people's pictures? So they're calling, and they want to create more anti-Semitism all over the world for one reason. It's a program called Aliyah, part of biblical prophecy. The return of the Jewish people from all over the world. And even the leader, who apparently just got reelected. Israel is your home. We are preparing and calling for mass immigration from Europe. So meanwhile, they're depopulating the Middle East and sending those Arabs, whatever religion they might be, even apparently released prisoners all into Europe and America. Meanwhile, from the rest of the world, they want all the Jewish people to move to that area while they're depopulating that area by either exporting them or killing them. So if you're watching this video, I have to ask, is this the truth? Or do you not believe this? Leave a comment below. If you end Zionism, but I don't think we can stop this pursuit of a global world order. Maybe it's just too far along. Maybe we're just shouting into the wind. Nobody's listening. Israelis raise this flag. The Hebrew Star of David is indisputably the symbol of Judaism. That star right there. Defiantly, Israel is arrogantly announcing, hey, Jews only. Adopted in 1948, the flag and its centerpiece have come to symbolize Zionism, racism, apartheid, inhuman brutality, and genocide. Says here, our race is the master race. We Jews are divine gods on the planet. We are as different from the inferior races as they are from insects. So they think that comparing us to them, we are insects. In fact, compared to our race, other races are beasts and animals, cattle at best. Other races are considered as human excrement. Oh my. Our destiny is to rule over the inferior races. Our earthly kingdom will be ruled by our leader with a rod of iron. This would be some kind of antichrist leader coming that everybody will have to swear allegiance to and denounce Christianity or be imprisoned, beheaded, etc. The masses will lick our feet and serve us as our slaves. Now, who said that, do you think? And do you believe this was said by what's on this picture? It was the Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, 1977 to 1983, in a speech to the Knesset, it's like their government, Congress, Israeli parliament. Can you believe that a leader of Israel said this? If you don't, go to this particular website, Charleston Voice, Judaism and Zionism, What's the Difference? chasvoice.blogspot.com. Another Jew against Zionism. So a lot of Jews know what's going on. Zionism Unsettled, a congregational study group guide. So you'll find some stuff. So in the Bible, in Revelations, it says synagogue of Satan. Satan's known as the serpent. Well, there you have it. Yahoo image search. What do you think? Are you thinking? Is it possible for we the people to stop this? It is, I believe, if we wake up and we pray and we talk to God and we do not join all of this New Age satanic philosophy, anti-Christian philosophy. I guess we just have to learn to just say no. No to Zionism, no to the New Age, no to transgenderism, no to all this anti-Christian propaganda and rhetoric. No to globalism. No to disarming people all over the world. No to the current political system where the Republican Party and the Democratic Party here in America and probably other countries all over the world are controlled by the puppet masters. No to the global banking system and the Illuminati and the elites who control it and the oil and the stock market and everything else. We have to say no to these people. Rick Miracle reporting. So what do you think? Back to the book. To understand why the United States is waging endless war in far-off nations across the Middle East against people who pose little or no threat to the United States, it is essential to understand that the operational plan being applied across the Middle East is something called the Yinan Plan. So I've showed you the pictures of Greater Israel. The plan was written in 1982 by an Israeli strategist named Olden Yinan and published in Hebrew by the World Zionist Organization's Department of Information in Jerusalem. Second paragraph down. 1982. So was 2001 avoidable? 9/11? Of course not. All this other stuff going on avoidable? Of course not. It's all planned. The Yinan Plan, entitled A Strategy for Israel in the 1980s, was then translated by Professor Israel Shahak of Hebrew University and published in English under the title The Zionist Plan for the Middle East. So this is 1982. When I say that World War I and World War II were also planned, think about it. The British citizens the troops killed, American citizen troops killed, German, Italy, Italian, France, countries all over the world, to destroy the Ottoman Empire and Turkey, to take away the Sultan's power to prevent the Zionist, Kabbalistic, secret society, Illuminati, synagogue of Satan peoples from getting to where they are today. And some insiders, Woodrow Wilson, Roosevelt, Churchill, and so many more, the Bushes, the Clintons, Obama, President Donald Trump, and so many more, were all part of this. Now, if that's true, and you're watching this video, and you can go look at the pictures yourself and get the books, this is series 260, different authors, 6 years making videos, 15 years of research. I believe what I'm seeing. But of course, there are people out there who put comments on my comment section, or when I make a comment on a press release to, Rick, get back on your medications. You're medically ill. They want us to believe their lines of propaganda, even about 9/11. The poor Arabs are the terrorists. They need to be neutralized. But then wait a minute. Building a big wall between the United States and Mexico? Are Mexicans the terrorists? Guatemalans? Brazilians? Venezuelans? Now, we the people are in a lot of trouble if we don't wake up. The Israeli plan calls for the destruction of the armies of the large Arab states, 1982, and the balkanization of their nations into the ethnic mini-states, exactly what was done to Yugoslavia in the 1990s. So Yugoslavia was a huge country between Europe and Russia, and the way they neutered it, took away its power. They had to make it into a bunch of smaller countries in the Baltics, as we all know, and keep them at continuous war with each other, fighting over the property lines. Consider what U.S. intervention has done to the Arab nations of Iraq and Syria, and compare it with the Israeli strategy plan called for in 1982. The Western Front, which on the surface appears to be problematic, is in fact less complicated than the Eastern Front, in which most of the events that make the headlines have been taking place. So you got the Eastern Front of Israel, or in the Western Front. Taking place recently. Lebanon's total dissolution into 5 provinces serves as a precedent for the entire Arab world, including Egypt. Syria, Iraq, and the Arabian Peninsula, and is already following that track. The dissolution of Syria and Iraq later on into ethnically or religiously unique areas such as Lebanon, and Israel's primary target on the Eastern Front, and in the long run, which is the dissolution of the military power of those states, serves as the primary short-term target. And I think they have plans to do that to the United States, to divide it into 10 different areas. They already have some maps showing 10 different FEMA areas. So they don't want a United States. They want a divided states. And people will go along with this. California will want to succeed, and Texas and those areas will want to secede. And they did that during the war between the North and the South, trying to weaken and destroy the United States and gain a lot of power, which they did. Even President Abraham Lincoln, I guess, wanted America to print its own money, and he was assassinated. You don't have to look far to find the evidence to who controls things. So if they do all these things and divide it, Syria will fall apart in accordance with its ethnic and religious structure into several states, which, as in the present day Lebanon, so that there will be a Shia Alawi state along the coast, a Sunni state in the Aleppo area, and another Sunni state in the Damascus, hostile to its northern neighbor. So they want to divide these countries into ethnic groups so they will continue to be hostile to each other. And it does sadden me that the Islamic peoples don't wake up and resolve their Sunni and Shiite dispute, sort of like the Catholic and Roman Catholics or the Roman Protestants divide, and many other Christian religions saying they're better than the others. How crazy is that? But the Sunnis and the Shiites, their basic disagreement is, one of them wants the head of the whole religious order to be a descendant of Muhammad, the prophet, the originator of the Islamic teachings religion. And the other group wants to be able to elect and choose its own leader. So it has created a divide between the Sunni and Shiites over, in my opinion, a ridiculous argument. But it is dividing the Arab Islamic world in half, where they are continually trying to wield power and destroy the opponent, when they're both supposed to be adherents to the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, the Islamic religion. Sad to see that they allowed themselves to be continually used and divided and killing each other, just like it was done during the Crusades from 1000 to 1300 AD. 8 different crusades coming out of the Vatican, controlled by the same secret societies, by the way. And they would go over there to the Crusades. They would go over there marching north along the Mediterranean through Turkey and etc., killing and pillaging along the way. And when they got to the Middle East, if the Shiites were in power, they would promise the Sunnis that they would be in power if they would help them defeat the Shiites, which they did, ridiculous as that is. And then later on, when there was another crusade, 8 of them over 300 years, if now the Sunnis were in power when they were having a crusade, they would tell the Shiites, if you help us destroy the Sunnis, we'll put you in power. And they did that flip-flop 8 times over 300 years. Again, you would think that the Islamic people would cease their argument between Sunni and Shiites and not allow themselves to be destroyed again and again and again and again and again and again. How many times I probably can't count. Sad, actually. It's a great area. It's the birthplace of a lot of the world, all of us. And certain peoples have brought all this destruction to the whole world for thousands of years. People apparently in league with demonic evil forces. Now there is another theory of mine. You know, there were advanced societies prior to the Great Flood. And you have to ask yourself, why did God, because the Great Flood was prophesied, and even Noah was told to build an ark to save some people. And indigenous tribes all over the world have stories about being assisted to go underground or in caves to survive the Great Flood. So apparently, during the Atlantean times or whatever, before the Great Flood, even in Egypt, we've seen it in mythology, they had a lot of these half-human and half-animal creatures, etc. Somebody was messing with God's creation and mixing genes with animals and humans and creating all kinds of monsters. This is a theory of mine, which I think is a lot of supporting evidence. But my point is, after the Great Flood, these evil entities, humans or whatever they were, did survive. And apparently, like in the mountains of the Himalayas, the Shambhala, and in the north, up by the North Pole, Hyperborea, or other areas all over the world, or in the earth or underground, these highly knowledgeable, intelligent entities survived the Great Flood and have from behind the scenes controlled the secret societies which were controlling the people. And so they've been kind of farming we the people ever since. And maybe the problem they're having now is we're waking up. So whether you want to call them demonic spiritual beings or survivors of some kind of elite beings prior to the Great Flood, I believe there's a lot of evidence to show that these are the beings that are the deities or the gods of the secret societies that are making their next chess move on planet Earth. Bringing us these 8 crusades during those 1000 to 1300, and bringing us the last 300 years of world destruction, from the French Revolution to Russian Revolution, Chinese Revolution, British Revolution, and so many more, French Revolution, United States, war between the North and the South Revolution. Divide and conquer and have everybody kill each other while these people from behind the scenes actually are in control and are farming we the people for whatever sinister purposes. So anyways, along its coast, a Sunni state in Aleppo and another Sunni state in Damascus, hostile to its northern neighbor, and the Druzes, who will set up a state maybe even in our Golan, and certainly in the Haran and in northern Jordan. This state of affairs will be the guarantee for peace and security in the area in the long run, and that aim is already within our reach today. So apparently that was part of the Israeli strategic plan called for in 1982. The Yinon plan represents the accurate and detailed plan for the present Zionist regime, the Menachem Begin Likud Party, for the Middle East, which is based on the division of the whole area into smaller states and the dissolution of all the existing Arab states. Shahak wrote in his foreword to the translated article. Here you go. Here's what he wrote. The Zionist vision for the Middle East rests on two essential premises. To survive, Israel must become an imperial regional power and must effect the division of the whole area into small states by the dissolution of the existing Arab states. 1982. Was 9/11 avoidable? No, it was planned. All these acts of terrorism avoidable? No, they're planned. Will they cease and desist? No, they have a goal. It is a global world order. It is anti-Christian. A lot of people will resist. They will be called terrorists. Apparently they have plans in place. All kinds of advanced weapons. Microwave transmission systems, which can be weaponized. 5G, or call it whatever you want. HARP transmitters. Dumping chemicals in the sky. Causing people to get sick. Plants, bugs, bees, worms, deer. Destroying our environment. They do not want us to be able to survive whenever they pull the food from the food markets and turn off the water supply. They do not want any resources available for the citizens when they have the huge depopulation event. And again, you don't think they're going to have a huge depopulation event? Let me show you another clip for from the Yahoo image site. Hello again to another word search on the Yahoo image site. Remember, you too can do this. So they got these guide stones in Georgia, United States. I've been there. And strangely enough, I had two different cameras, and I took pictures and video. And when I got home, apparently the pictures and videos disappeared. Kind of crazy, you think? Planned world depopulation event, says on the right-hand side. A YouTube video. You can go look up Georgia Guidestones and find this image. I didn't sort this out or anything. And click the link on the right here and watch the YouTube video. A lot of people go there and visit. Weirdly enough, when I was there were some other tourists looking at it, and I started explaining to people what I thought it was. And out of nowhere, a car come racing up the dirt road, and the two women got out and wanted to know what I was talking about. So apparently you can see this pole over here in the back, but somehow they have a camera system watching the site. It gets vandalized all the time. And they saw me acting like a tour guide to a bunch of people, telling them what my interpretation. So they are watching it every day. What does it say? It says on the top of this one, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Guide production wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Unite humanity with a living new language. Unite humanity with a living new language? What language do you suppose that's going to be? Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Do you really believe these people who want to reduce the population by 6 billion are going to do these things? Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. And apparently Israel and the Sanhedrin, the religious political leaders in Israel today, are calling for the dissolution of the United Nations and a Sanhedrin-controlled new group of people to make decisions and be the court for the world. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. So they have to demonize the officials, which is why they set them up to fall and put it in the newspapers. So eventually the people will go along and want to do away with these officials. Balancing personal rights with social duties. So everybody will have social duties. They're even talking about a social income for everybody, whether you work or not. Everybody gets a base income. But I'm hearing that it comes with strings. If you don't have a job to go to, they'll have a job for you to go to. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony from the infinite. Seeking harmony with the infinite. I guess that's part of the Sephiroth, tree of life. The infinite God that we are all sparks of. The Theophist type of Kabbalah type philosophy teaching. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. And they are using the plans these days for sustainability to make more land inaccessible to we the people all over the United States and the world. And they plan on continuing that. The Georgia Guidestones. It was erected anonymously in March 1980. It's in 12 different languages. The hole in the center column always leaving North Star visible. There you go. Occult. Precise horizontal slot indicates sun cycles, the occult. Maintain humanity under 500 million. So how do they plan on doing that? And there's a couple books I've gone over about their huge concerns about overpopulation, which I think is completely not correct. It's a huge planet. If these people weren't destroying everything, we'd be much better off. And there is a little plaque that says RC Christian, so that's a sister organization to the Freemasons. So apparently they have to announce to the world what they're doing. So it says here, how to rebuild a better society after an unknown apocalyptic event, whilst also functioning as a compass, calendar, and clock. There you go. Lots of occult symbolism. Wow, some people wrote on it. We are worshiping the creation and not the creator. We are fools. Professing themselves to be wise, they become fools. They exchange the glory of the uncorruptible God for the image of the corruptible man and animals. So you too can go visit it. Here's that plaque I was mentioning. I saw this there. Egyptian hieroglyphics, classic Greek, Babylonian cuneiform, all these different languages. Let these guidestones be an age of reason. Sanskrit. Don't see the indications to the RC Christian. So there you have it. You can go look these up and read about it. So there's plenty of evidence to show us what's really going on if we want to have eyes to see and ears to hear and a brain to think with. Back to the book. A War on Terror. They create the terror. They have a purpose. Make no mistake about it. And whether it is some kind of beings in the mountains of Himalayas, the Shambhala, or some other dimension, whatever, demonic beings, fallen angels, the leaders of the secret societies that control our planet, they have a plan, and they're good at deceiving us. Ideally, we'd like to see Iraq disintegrate into a Shiite, Kurdish, Sunni community, each making war on the other. An Israeli official was quoted on the 26th July of 1982 in the issue of Newsweek. The center of this video. I'll read it one more time. And my question to you watching this video, do you believe this? If you do believe this, what do you think we the people need to do? Ideally, we'd like to see Iraq disintegrate into a Shiite, Kurdish, Sunni community, each making war on the other. An Israeli official was quoted on the 26th July 1982 issue of Newsweek. Do you believe what's in this book? I believe it. I don't think this author, I know we all see too much other evidence. The idea that all the Arab states should be broken down by Israel into small units occurs again and again in Israeli strategic thinking. Hence, 9/11. And what? We've had this war going on now 18 years? 19 years? This is 2019. Months away from 2020. This is 2019. They have plans. A lot of people are wondering what day they'll bring us another 9/11 to close the door on freedoms of the people all over the world. Purge the people who will not deny Jesus Christ. And probably deny the Islamic religion, deny other religions, and not pledge allegiance to this antichrist character that's coming. Want to be fair and balanced. It's not just the Christians they're destroying. Shahak wrote, for example, Shivai Shift, the military correspondent for Haaretz, a Jewish major newspaper, wrote on June 2nd, 1982, about the best that can happen for Israeli interest in Iraq, the dissolution of Iraq into a Shiite state, a Sunni state, and a separation for the Kurdish part. And of course, divided they fall. And instead of having a huge country called Iraq, smaller countries won't have the money to buy advanced technologies and weapons. Hence, they can be controlled by the banksters and other world controllers to be held hostage for their waters and food and medicine and education and everything. It really promises to be a very interesting world in the near future. I would probably suggest it will be quite bizarre and like the Twilight Zone, and not a place you'd want to be. No pina coladas or partying at the beach or whatever, or visiting your family, or moving from Ohio to Florida without permission. You'd have to be kind of an elite to get permission, not even be able to have children without permission, and certainly not able to own a gun or go hunting. You'll be called a insurgent or a terrorist. And where have we heard those words before? Right out of the Middle East. A strong connection with the neoconservative thought in the United States is very prominent, especially in the author's notes. Shahak wrote, but while lip service is part of the idea of the defense of the West from the Soviet power, the real aim of the author and of the present Israeli establishment is clear: to make an imperial Israel into a world power. So instead of having the Ottoman Empire, or maybe the American government being leaders throughout the world, or the British Empire, or the German Empire, or whatever, they want Israel to be the imperial empire of the world power. In other words, the aim of Sharon is to deceive the Americans after he has deceived all the rest. So that would be Prime Minister Sharon. And he made an interesting statement in a heated argument in his Congress. Some of his other congressmen were saying, we can't keep doing this to the Palestinian people. The Americans will cut off our foreign aid and military support. And what do you think that Prime Minister Sharon said? I'll show you in a video clip from Yahoo image site. But I have one more paragraph here to read. This is the real Zionist operation that the U.S. and its allies have been applying across the Middle East since 9/11. We are not fighting terror. We are redrawing the map of the Middle East to suit Israeli strategic plan to dominate the entire region. So who controls the United States? Let me show you a clip, and then you decide. Rick Miracle here again on the Yahoo image site. Looking up the words, Ariel Sharon, one of Israel's prime ministers, and the words, we control America, as you can see on the top. Too much evidence. So here's what he said in this particular first image. I want to tell you something very clear. Don't worry about American pressure on Israel. Here he is in his own Congress, screaming at his other congressmen. We, the Jewish people, control America, and the Americans know it. Ariel Sharon, October 3rd, 2001. Think about the date. Look at the date. October 3rd. So what happened a month earlier? Less than a month earlier. September 11th, 9/11. September, October. Less than a month later, this man in his Congress says this. So who do you suppose was behind 9/11 if he said this? He said, who rules America? We control America. Every time we do something, you tell me America will do this or will do that. I want to tell you something very clear. Don't worry about American pressure on Israel. We, the Jewish people, control America, and the Americans know it. You can find that at me.me website. Now again, I ask a crazy question. Do you believe this or do you not believe it? Do you believe him or do you not believe it? Here's what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, the current Prime Minister. Once we squeeze all we can out of the United States, it can dry up and blow away. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to Jonathan Pollard, convicted CIA traitor and Mossad spy in the USA, upon exiting Pollard's jail cell. So they control the United States banking supply, and they keep on tacking all this money that they borrow to pursue the global order onto the national debt. And apparently we owe trillions upon trillions to them and their banks. I don't think they're going to forgive that debt. They will destroy America before they do that. These people are in cahoots. Here he is with President George Bush. Remember, George Bush comes from a secret society, Skull and Bones. They're all connected. All the presidents and leaders have to go to the Wailing Wall, where the old King Solomon's temple was. Here is George Bush Jr. surrounded by rabbis. I don't know if we can find a picture of George Bush Sr. surrounded by rabbis signing into law the Noahide laws. Old pictures like this with the Zionist Anti-Defamation League, the Jewish Defense League, the Political Action Committees, B'nai B'rith. We, the Jewish people, control America, it says on the bottom of this picture, and the Americans know it. Israel Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. Here's an interesting picture. You got a reporter, apparently with some Arabic writing behind her. You got the same reporter with the people Occupy Wall Street. This is all orchestrated for our entertainment and our distraction and our mind control program. Make no mistake. Zionists control Wall Street. Does anybody doubt that? Does anybody doubt that World War III or some kind of catastrophe will come and will have been planned? And I've said this before, and I really hate saying things without showing more evidence, because I read and research so much. But Bush gave $30 billion to Israel in taxpayer-funded weapons from 2009 to 2018. So that would be over 9-10 years. Obama wants to give Israel $40 billion from 2019 to 2028. And we know why President Donald Trump is president. He's already done a lot of things to aid Israel, but Israel controls our country, as Prime Minister Sharon said. Again, I ask, does anybody believe that that is not true? So here this guy says, American Jewry makes any debate on whether the protocols of the learned elders of Zion are an authentic document or a forgery. Irrelevant. American Jews do control the world. Gilad Atzmon. Israel's a dot on the map. It gets more aid than all of Africa. Free your mind and think. Now, isn't that crazy? You would think that Africa, with the third world country and all this pain and suffering, would get more aid than a tiny dot. But of course, the tiny dot controls the world. And they've been killing a lot of people in Africa. It's time to wake up. So what do you think? True or false? Is everything I'm saying true or false? I'm fair and balanced. I can take it. There's a comment section below. Let me hear your opinion. All right, some more in this book. The Common Origin, Chapter 5. Says here, how does it feel? Focus. gotta go buy another camera. How does it feel, in the light of all that's going on, to be the father of terrorism in the Middle East? So apparently, they asked that to Menachem Begin, the Prime Minister for Israel. You're not going to believe what he said. In the Middle East, he began, bellowed in his thick cartoon accent, in all the world. So he was asked, how does it feel to be the father of terrorism in the Middle East? And he says, in the Middle East, in all the world. Menachem Begin to Russell Warren Howell, January 1974. So way before Sharon said that in 2001, October, less than a month after 9/11, Menachem Begin says that in 1974. Washington Report on Middle East Affairs, March 2009. Again, do you believe what he said and that he said it? If he did say it in 1974, and Sharon said it days after 9/11, and Netanyahu says they're going to squeeze everything out of the United States until it self-destructs and waste away. Paraphrasing. What's it going to take for we the people to step up and do something? To organize in groups in all the states and elect people that will take back our country. It might be a tough fight, but the alternative is Armageddon. Joining the Luciferian forces and New Age is selling your soul. Imagine losing your soul because people refuse to do anything. Chapter 5, The Common Origin. Although the terror attacks of September 11, 2001 have had a tremendous impact on world history, global society, and our way of life, the events that are commonly referred to as 9/11 are not well understood. What is most peculiar about 9/11 is that in spite of the huge effect it had on modern history, the crime itself has not been properly investigated and examined as one would expect. The structural steel from the World Trade Center, for example, crucial evidence from the crime scene where some 2,700 people were killed, was hastily cut into small pieces and shipped to Asia. They didn't want anybody to examine the steel. This indicates that the decision had been made at the highest level to destroy the evidence to prevent a proper investigation of the crime. The failure to investigate the 9/11 crime means that much of what passes for modern political history is nothing more than an unfounded allegation and assumptions. Next page. Deceived into war. The war on terror, the plot to rule the Middle East. I'll add, the plot to rule the world. The plot to destroy Christianity. World revolution. I've made many book reviews on all these topics. Ironically, that's the only book so far that YouTube has actually taken down of my videos, is Nestor Webster's 1921 book, The World Revolution, that tells all about the French Revolution, the Freemasonic involvement, the Illuminati involvement, the Zionist revolutionary Jewish people involvement. And remember, they assassinated, or I should say executed, the King of France. In the British Revolution, they executed the British king to be able to take over those countries. Deceived into war. A growing number of people who have examined the 9/11 evidence understand why the administration of George W. Bush allowed the evidence to be destroyed and why he delayed any inquest into the matter for more than a year. The evidence proves without a doubt that high-level officials of the government and owners of the major media newsworks networks conspired from the beginnings to deceive the people about what really happened in 9/11. The purpose of the conspiracy was to promote a false narrative in order to take the United States and its allies into an open-ended and criminal war known as the Global War on Terror. 15 years later, both the conspiracy and the criminal wars it started are ongoing. So why don't I just take a little look at the Yahoo image site on 9/11 and make a short clip and see if the topic I'm thinking about will pop up. Well, here I am again, looking up 9/11 molten steel. So you get a plane ramming into a building. We can understand that. And there may have been a lot of jet fuel on there, but I'm sure that would have evaporated or burned up rather quickly. And even fires in the building, that would have been normal. But there's a lot of things that just were not normal. So let's take a look at some of these pictures and wonder and ask ourselves, why would the molten metal be pouring out of this building? Burning jet fuel could not do it. Why would there be molten metal, apparently days, weeks later, when they're cleaning up the debris? Pools of molten steel were found at the WTC site. Steel melts at 2,750 degrees. Jet fuel burns at a maximum of temperature of 1,800. And another thing too, do you know the Twin Towers had a serious asbestos problem? So asbestos would have prevented any fires. Did you know that? They don't mention that too much. Why would they have molten metal? And another thing too, look at these beams. If you look at them, if you've ever crunched up some aluminum foil or some metal, it all crinkles and bends. These beams, if you can see them, are cut at sharp edges. Look at this. You can go on Yahoo image site and check it out for yourself. You don't have to be a scientist or an engineer to look at the picture and say, that couldn't have happened. Look how the beams are cut. Now, if you put demolition devices on there with some kind of nuclear nano explosive device, it does cut it like that. Liquid metal falling. Here's a guy removing debris. Glowing metal pipe. So there's certainly much more going on than most of us know, and there's a lot of pictures and a lot of websites and a lot of YouTube videos confirming the fact, and a lot of science involved. And look how these metal beams were cut. A falling building would have toppled over left or right or crushed or something. They wouldn't have all been cut so perfectly. It looks like they were designed to fall apart, which is what they do in demolition. Note the molten drips off the edge cut. So the molten is dripping off of this edge cut. So some of that nanite material was still there. WTC, meteorite comprised of melted steel and concrete and other materials now stored on display at Hangar 17. Molten metal pools. No evidence of molten steel YouTube video. Again, Architects of America, engineers. Molten metal drip. Molten metal is falling away from the building in this picture. Jet fuel could not have done that. Anyways, you gotta love Yahoo image site. (911) molten steel forensic evidence and eyewitnesses YouTube video dripping molten metal. So a plane would have crashed. I don't think a plane would have done all of this. This all came afterwards anyways, after the plane hit it on both buildings. And then there were all these big popping sounds, explosion sounds. 400 truckloads of steel per day were removed. Somebody seriously wanted to get that steel out of there. Usually the government doesn't move that fast, don't you think? Wow, it looks like this steel melted into this round thing here, pouring out. Nanite would have probably done that. So they got plenty of evidence here. Molten metal. So you think a couple planes did that? I don't think so. Well, I could read more from this book, but I think you get the picture. Go get this book. Read it. Many other books. Look his name up on YouTube videos and see if he's having any kind of conversations with interviewers. And I'll use up the last few minutes of my 2-hour video to play some short clips that are just connecting the dots to who, what, and why are behind the efforts to bring about a global world order, destroy the Middle East, destroy the environment, destroy Christianity, destroy the world as we know it, and bring us this Antichrist deity where everybody will have to swear allegiance to it, whatever it is. It certainly is not God, and all the things they're doing, killing the world, stealing from the world, killing the world, deceiving the world, making everybody be concerned about the future and the reality, and what will the lives of our children be like, and the insane movies, the viciousness. Sometimes you just lose your train of thought when you're just trying to talk about this stuff because it's so overwhelming. I understand that. But I continue to make these book reviews and share the information, and I appreciate people watching my videos. So see these next few clips and just understand I believe that it's all connected.
The United Nations is not a friend of democracy. We're going to cancel the Paris Climate Agreement.
As to the UN, things will be different after January 20th.
NATO is obsolete. The
You really
Ukraine,
think NATO's obsolete?
I think it's largely obsolete, yeah. It's got to be changed.
Some high-profile Republicans now threatening to try and yank funding from the United Nations.
I will veto any attempt by the UN to impose its will on the Jewish state.
Wow. You need to go watch this video and many more. The United Nations. So apparently, Israel, the Zionist, Illuminati secret societies, which control the presidents of the United States and a lot of countries all over the world, is opposing the United Nations. Get it? The word United Nations? So the popular opinion of we the people is not popular. The United Nations. Unbelievable, actually.
If Donald Trump is elected, on the basis of what he has said already, I think it's without any doubt that he would be dangerous.
It's nothing should be taken seriously.
NATO remains an indispensable engine for effective international security cooperation.
NATO is supposed to be in charge of world peace? What's wrong with the United Nations?
The USA has elected Donald Trump to the White House. What's this mean to the world, and how are these events related to biblical prophecy? We've explained to you who the lost 10 tribes are today in our other teachings, and we've shown you when the Jubilee cycles are and what they mean in prophecy. How are we to understand the election of Donald Trump as the 45th President of the United States in this 120th Jubilee cycle? What's it mean? Can he be the Cyrus of Isaiah 45, as some are saying?
Well, they did put his face on a coin with King Osiris, the last king to help the Jewish people rebuild the second temple. And apparently they're preparing to rebuild the third temple. So anybody who does not believe that biblical prophecy is at play here, better think again. And that it is an anti-Christian effort. Oh my.
Adam Green here with No More News. It's March 27th, 2019. I want to start with this clip out of APEC of them talking about how they're going to take over student governments just like how they've taken over Congress in Washington. Here we go.
How are we going to beat back the anti-Israel divestment resolution at Berkeley? We're going to make sure that pro-Israel students take over the student government. Reverse thing. Vote.
Pro-Israel students take over the student governments across the United States and then vote pro-Israel.
This is how AIPAC operates.
Agenda 21, the plan to kill you. Here he discusses whether manipulation is a tool of the United Nations Agenda 21 to displace populations and bankrupt independent farmers, to reduce global populations by placing control of all food resources into the hands of giant New World Order corporations like Monsanto. The 2016 catastrophic flood in Louisiana is the most recent example of Agenda 21 tactics, along with the ongoing drought and the related wildfires in California and the west coast of North America. The trademark of government-sponsored false flag terror events since 9/11 is when the vast technological resources of government agencies somehow fail to forecast a catastrophic event. In this case, it was a 1,000-year flood event of biblical proportions that was missed by NOAA, the National Weather Service, and the wizards at the Weather Channel. But we now know that the ability to relocate weather systems with electromagnetic weapons and skies seeded with conductive aerosols is the key to the creation of artificial global warming to deliberately increase surface temperatures and melt Arctic ice. We must act now to stop deployment of these eco-weapons in order to restore a natural global climate, to return rainfall to the forces of nature, and to stop the melting of Arctic ice by weaponized deployment of aerosol chemicals and electromagnetic directed energies.
Benjamin H. Friedman was a successful Jewish businessman who was at one time the principal owner of the Woodbury Soap Company. He spent the great preponderance of his considerable fortune, at least $2.5 million, exposing the tyranny which he believed had enveloped the United States.
That is something that the people in the United States have never been told. They never knew why we went into World War I. The Balfour Declaration was merely Great Britain promised to pay the Zionists what they had agreed upon as a consideration for getting the United States into the war. When the war was ended, and the Germans went to Paris, to the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, when they were cutting up Germany and parceling out Europe to all these nations that claimed a right to a certain part of European territory, the Jews said, how about Palestine for us? And they produced, for the first time, to the knowledge of Germans, this Balfour Declaration. So the Germans, for the first time, realized, oh, that was the game. That's why the United States came into the war. And the Germans, for the first time, realized that they were defeated. They suffered this terrific reparations that was thrust onto them because the Zionists wanted Palestine. And they were determined to get it at any cost. When the Germans realized this, they naturally resented it. Up to that time, the Jews had never been better off in any country in the world than they had been in Germany. The Jews were doing very well in Germany. No question about that. Now, the Germans felt, well, that was quite a sellout. We've been so nice to them, and from 1905 on, when the first communist revolution in Russia failed, and the Jews had to scramble out of Russia, they all went to Germany, and Germany gave them refuge, and they were treated very nicely. And here, they sold Germany down the river for no reason at all, other than they wanted Palestine as a so-called Jewish colony.
We have a very vulnerable grid structure for that. We saw hints of that 4 or 5 years ago in the New York metropolitan area. Right. God forbid, right?
Hackers found a way to hack our utilities, and the hackers may still be in there.
So when one of the busiest airports in the world experiences a power outage, obviously there's going to be some impact, statewide.
Big trouble for multiple airlines, system-wide outages across the country. Southwest and Delta Airlines talking about the issues on social media.
I mean, if they've hacked in and they're still in and we don't know exactly where they are, I mean, could they bring down the whole grid?
And to follow the law. They embraced Judaism for purposes of political expediency. They were sandwiched between Islam and Christianity, Byzantine Christianity, and they chose Judaism. These European Jews, if you look at the list of names of Nobel Prizes for science, for literature, would you name it? You will find that these are people who far exceed the rest of mankind in their intellectual brilliance, in their academic achievements, in their scientific research. They are a people different from the rest of mankind. And then you find that these Chazar, who became Jews, also chose to become Christians. So you have the Chazar infiltrating the camp of Judaism and infiltrating the camp of Christianity as well. It is these Chazar who, having become Jews, first Jews and second Christians, who built an empire that was the most powerful in Europe and Central Asia. And when the armies of Islam had simultaneously defeated the two superpowers in the world, the Persian Empire and Byzantium, and had emerged as the most powerful military force in the world, Khazar blocked our way, we could not defeat them. And so it would be quite correct to say that the Khazar demonstrated a military power without equal in the world at that time. They spread out to Eastern Europe, they spread to Russia, and eventually crossed the sea to the United States. And they are at the heart of the revolutions which transformed Europe from Christendom into modern Western civilization. They are at the heart of the Bolshevik revolution in Russia, which overturned Christianity in Russia. They are at the heart of the French Revolution, in consequence of which the back of the Christian church is broken. And they are at the heart of the creation of the Zionist movement. It is these Khazar, Jewish and Christian, who now move to the Holy Land, assisted by a strange and mysterious Jewish Holocaust. And the history of that will one day be revealed. How much was their input into the Holocaust?
Whatever you want to call it. These boxes allow them to talk to other dimensions. I was saying that for years. And then suddenly, last year, Jordy said the same.
AI is just like that. So when this thing that I'm talking about happens, it's going to be exactly the thing that you're thinking about those super intelligent AIs. So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. So alien means, different. These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart, they might be really good at all sorts of different things, but they're not going to be like us. They're going to be aliens. And they're going to be, I'm sorry to say, way smarter than every single person in this room.
Now pay attention, because he's literally disclosing right this moment
that we can't even comprehend. So this, of course, triggers a lot of alarm. One of the guys who talks about this is Elon. These words, demons, doesn't capture the essence of what's happening here. I don't know if any of you are turn-of-the-century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft, who's a very famous American weird fiction author. And he espoused a view which is called cosmicism. And the essence of cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons. They're not evil. Same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now.
Okay, so you get the picture. You understand.
Well, as you can see, there's no shortage of evidence out there that there are some crazy things going on in our world. And I believe it's all connected, as much as it might boggle the mind to try to assimilate all of this information and make sense out of it. Again, thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle Reporting. Give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and share the videos with other people.